Welcome back. Let's talk networking a little bit. So, last week on TechStrong TV and Tech Field Day, you might have seen our networking field day stream. And I wanted to bring up some of the contents of that networking, not in terms of the companies that presented and the products that they talked about, but in terms of what it means for the overall enterprise networking space. So, my colleague, Tom Hollingsworth, who is our networking field day lead here, organized that event, brought in those companies and those delegates, and gave me some ideas here about what we should take away from Networking Field Day in July of 2025. So, first off, this event saw two companies talking about the new open source network operating system called Sonic. Now, those are a Viz and the aptly named, yes, it's called Sonic. The company is called Hedgehog. Yeah. You can laugh now. Um, eh, Both of those companies are using this open source network operating system. But what Tom found interesting, and what I found interesting as well, is that they're not focused on the capabilities of Sonic so much as the features that they can bring on top of that. In other words, open source has provided them a platform, and they're taking that platform and doing interesting things with it in terms of offering higher level applications and platforms. This is, I think, what we see as well. We like to talk about Linux, but what we don't really mean the kernel. We really mean all of the cool things that we can do with that kernel by having a powerful open source operating system for servers. Well, Sonic is that for the network. So that was Tom's first takeaway. The second takeaway was, of course, the elephant in the room. HPE was there with their Aruba networks. Now, they're not yet, I think, ready to talk in too much detail about what they're going to do post-Juniper acquisition, but I think HPE is a little bit on the upswing here in networking. They're pounding their chest a little. Gartner just put them at the top right in the Magic Quadrant for enterprise networking. They actually moved Cisco into the challengers box. They moved them out of the leaders. HPE is essentially the networking company to beat, and Juniper was right behind, and now they're one company. So I think HPE is feeling pretty good. They showed off at Networking Field Day what they're doing with Aruba Central. They talked a lot about optimism for the future, of course, now that they're going to have access to some more incredible network operations and networking technologies. Maybe HPE is the one to watch in networking. And then finally, the other big takeaway was service assurance. When it comes to networking, network operating systems, it's not enough to know if something's gone down. You have to have a platform that allows you to see it and react to it and bring it back up. And that's been the goal, of course, of a lot of the AI-based platforms out there. Also, a lot of the IT service management stuff that you might read about here on various TechStrong sites. All of these capabilities were really in focus at Networking Field Day. So let me throw it to the group here. I saw Alan make a little grin here, so I'll throw it to you first. What's your reaction to the three things that I just brought up?
Look, first we saw hardware getting cool again, and now in this age of cloud, all of a sudden network's getting cool again. What's old is new. What's coming next? Elephant bell bottoms? Nero collared shirts? I don't know. But, Stephen, I thought it was interesting in that this was, I think, one of the very first events post the approval for the Juniper acquisition where HPE got a chance to open the kimono at least a little bit.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. I'm not 100% sure, but I think this might have been the first post-approval public appearance for HPE. And, there's a little swagger in their step.
Mm-hmm. And deservedly so, right? I mean, Juniper always represented quality to me. And for as long as I've been involved and I've known of Juniper, and for me, Juniper probably burst on the scene in 98, maybe, something like that. And, they were always the high-end, just high-end quality. Their routers, I always thought their routers were higher end than Cisco's, though Cisco's were, the bread and butter. If Cisco was Chevy, Pontiac, Oldsmobile, Juniper was a little bit of a Ferrari, right? So we'll see how it goes.
I think the rebranding gives HPE sort of a little bit of independence. It's got its history of Hewlett Packard, but it isn't saddled with calling itself Hewlett Packard. It's HPE. That's sort of the lift that seems that they've got. I was
So
really fascinated by this.
Aruba has cachet in the market, right?
Oh, they
Aruba,
do
I mean,
too.
when
Oh,
you
yeah,
talk wireless,
extremely well
it's a
known.
great one.
Well, yeah,
I
especially
no
in the
doubt.
wireless space,
Steven.
they're
Yeah.
really the leader in terms of features and functions, especially in the campus wireless space. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
So
access
Steven,
point management, handoff of signal across the campus.
how much is AI, uh, you know, fabric, like Hedgehog is pronouncing, like, HP is obviously going to start to heavily talk about. How much of this is whitewashing because AI is popular? And how much of it's really needed in order to make this effective? I mean, there's a lot of. I look at this as the way we've always looked at infrastructure, right? There's a handful of Hogwarts leaders that kind of get this stuff really, really well, and everybody else is kind of like scratching their head going, I have no idea what this stuff is. I mean, network and storage has always been for me those bastions of, there are people, I get it a little, even for me, I'm like, I can only go so deep, right? And there are people who just live in it. And so it's easy to kind of express these use cases like, oh, if you're training, you need this new fabric, or if you're doing, hosting inference, you need. How much of that is actually real, and how much of that is, oh, it makes a nice story, and nobody understands networking anyway that would buy this?
Yeah. Well, I think that what you're hitting on there is an interesting aspect. I think when you look at the data center, networking and storage are a lot harder than they seem. I think a lot of people that are outside these spaces look at it and they say, storage, hard drives, SSDs, how hard could it be? It's just storage. In networking, you plug in the cable and it works. That's networking, right? And these things have proven incredibly difficult. Like you said, I mean, it's hard for somebody to build a challenger to a Juniper or a Cisco without having, all of the engineering that goes into the real nuts and bolts that are happening below it. That's where the Sonic operating system is coming from. I mean, I really would liken it to Linux, except for networking. And it opens the door to the possibility that some of these challengers could come out with actually competitive products without having to build the entire stack underneath it. We haven't really seen that in storage. I mean, a lot of storage systems are built on Linux and built on some but we really haven't seen a dedicated storage operating system in that way. And I think that's one thing that has caused storage to be sort of this monoculture. Whereas, in networking, I think there's a lot more excitement. And then also in networking as well, you got to think about all the other things that you can do on top of it. So it's not enough just to push packets. You really have to think about, what are you doing with this? How are you building something that's reliable, that's supportable, that can change and adapt, that can, address problems and be secure. I mean, Mitch, to the point of what you all worked on previously, security in many ways can be seen as an offshoot of networking, or at least a cousin of networking, because so many of the problems that were exposed by internetworking have become sort of the defining security issues of our day.
Well, I think there's going to be a ton of innovation that will happen because of Sonic. If you peel back, Sonic was created by Microsoft. I think it was the Open Compute Foundation. And now they donated it to the Linux Foundation now, but it like AWS, like Google, Microsoft built its own network operating system fabric. They needed something to build Azure data centers, right? All the way down to the switch levels and managing, very large data centers. There just wasn't software to do it at that level, at that capacity. And of the three, I think I think Google's was like Andromeda and Jupiter or something like that. They had their own versions of this. But Microsoft donated to the Linux Foundation. And like Linux, like Kubernetes, like other things, I think we'll see a lot of innovation put on this, because this takes the idea of software-defined networking from a vendor solution to an open source solution that now I can build routing, I can build switch management, I can build management system monitoring, et cetera, on top of this NOS, the Sonic NOS. And I think we'll see a lot of products built on top of it, including storage solutions, including anything you need to manage physically in a data center can be managed through something like a NOS.
Interesting. Who's going to use it? What is this? Do you think we'll get a public cloud provider that they all have invested in their own proprietary? Does this become the OS for private cloud networking?
Private cloud, think about AI networks. If you want to extend what you can do in your network fabric, not just the big guys are building big data centers. Still, enterprises are building big data centers too. Not same size, of course, but there's still a lot of opportunity for this, especially in a hybrid cloud sense. And I think the degree that Sonic would work in that environment would be especially valuable. I don't know that it does, but I think that would be interesting.
And yeah, I think that the big interesting thing, though, as Tom says, is not Sonic itself. It's what people are doing with Sonic. And the fact that they take this stack and then they come out of the gate, instead of having to prove the nuts and bolts capabilities of their platform, they come out of the gate with a proven winner in terms of a network operating system. And then they do interesting things with it. And then they build, advanced features and functions. And it's the same with a lot of this other stuff. You build, service assurance and security on top of of a platform that is already proven. And you don't have to then spend a lot of time trying to argue that people can trust you with their packets.
But that's the beauty of the Linux Foundation type model, right? It lifts that rising tide lifts all the boats to the same level, right? Table stakes are already done. Everybody's anteed in. It's done. It's what you do from on top of that separates winners from losers. And, it's the same thing, as I say, with a lot of the LF projects, right? The competitors, they all start at the same point in the race, right? And where they go from there is, Darwinism at play.
And it makes all of us richer. That's the thing about the Linux Foundation that I love, and about these projects. All of us benefit because the industry is able to work together. We're all able to get a better product that does more things, that it's better for every.
The basic things are quality done, and everyone contributes to that basic. So your basic level is solid, right? And you go from there. Anyway,
well, in Sonic, just one other thing, Sonic is built on a lot of other things. It's not just by itself. It's built on Debian operating system, but it uses containers. It runs Docker. It also runs Redis for database. It uses Ansible, Chef, Puppet, a whole bunch of different things that we know in the software world. So it's a different kind of network operating system than we might have seen a networking company build 5 or 10 years ago.
Cool. Stephen, you want to say something else?
Well, I guess one more thing that I'll say too is that one of the things that I love about the Linux Foundation as well is that, it's easy to say like, oh, standards. The greatest thing about standards is that you can always pick a different one, or camel is a horse that's built by a committee. Those kind of things. They're very focused on actually making things that will work and function, not just sort of dreaming up some new pie in the sky thing. They're interested in building something that works. And I love that aspect specifically of things like Sonic and Linux. It's all about making it work, not just making another standard that nobody's going to adopt.
Fair enough. Hey, I just want to mention before closing out that Networking Field Day is available on the Tech Field Day YouTube site. I imagine, yes, Stephen?
Yep, absolutely.
And as well, is it on TechStrong TV and OTT, or? Yes,
yep.
Grab it there as well.
OTT and the TechStrong TV app. By the way, that app is in Google Play and Apple iOS store and stuff.
It is.
I mean, we're watching it on TV here.
Absolutely. It's also available on Apple TV and Roku and Amazon Fire. So have a go at it. All right. Hey, that's going to wrap our show for TechStrong Gang this fine Tuesday. Stephen, JP, Mitch, thanks for joining. Thank you for joining. We have a full TechStrong TV lineup coming up immediately following today's show as usual. And we'll be back tomorrow with some more gang members and some great stuff to talk about. Until then, though, this is Alan Schemmel. Have a great day, everyone. We're out.